Where my next guest says that Iran, not Iraq, should be the focus today.
This nutcase is threatening the United States in many ways. Iran has given the order for Hezbollah to begin suicide attacks in the United States this summer. This network is helping fight the media war. And the American people have been dumbed down by the secular left.
And we know this guy has a propensity for outrageous remarks and has made statements about annihilating innocent countries.
What I can tell you is that Iran must be stopped. This is a country led by a rantic, lunatic president who threatens to wipe Israel off the map, who denies the Holocaust.
You know, Laredo is the busiest border town here in Texas, and authorities are always looking for drug and immigrant smugglers. But as you mentioned, the sheriff down here in Webb County says his main concern is terrorism. These two men are from Honduras, but some say they could have just as easily come from a country of interest. That's what the Department of Homeland Security calls countries like Iraq and Iran because of terror concerns.
And these people eventually are going to climb up to large metropolitan areas where they could already be planning or plotting or already have something orchestrated to happen in the future. We don't want to have another 9/11.
These were taken off a jacket found near the border. One is an Arabic military badge. The other depicts the tragic events of 9/11.
The reality is, the center of gravity for all the problems right now, the A-team, is Iran.
Well, a militia group linked to terror being backed by Iran and setting up camp on America's doorstep. Hezbollah fought Israel in Lebanon last summer. Now intelligence shows it has a stronghold going in South America. The development raising new concerns about our southern border and just who exactly is sneaking across and why.
We've got to wake up here and understand what the real threat is around the world, not just the terrorists, Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Iraq, but also Hezbollah around the world like they are in South America.
Well, this is from the Department of the Unbelievable. A former U.S. engineer at the nation's largest nuclear power plant has been arrested, accused of taking computer access codes to Iran and using them to download details of the Palo Verde nuclear plant's control rooms and reactors.
Now, the FBI says this guy has no ties to terrorism, but if this software were to get into the wrong hands, how concerned should we be?
Well, we should be very concerned, even though the FBI says he's not affiliated with terrorist groups or he's got no ties. That just means that we have no information or evidence that ties him to groups. But
I think for all American voters, threats to our national security have to be a higher priority. Look, in an election year, everybody cares about economic and social issues. It's natural. But I would argue we have to worry more about the threats to the United States and our close friends and allies around the world. And that's what I think we ought to be focusing the candidates on. Voters ought to be saying to the candidates, we want to know more about what you think the threats are.
Plus, the plot to blow up JFK Airport, sky high, keeps getting murkier. Now, this word that one of the suspects was about to get his hands on, of all things, an Iranian visa. Coincidence or mounting evidence that the so-called homegrown plot of terror reached beyond our shores to our most vocal and potentially dangerous enemy?
Meanwhile, New York police and the FBI are following this lead. Why was one of those suspects apparently planning a trip to Iran by way of Venezuela?
Now, a lot of the media is saying, hey, well, DeFreitas and his informant friend and those other guys were amateurs. They're wannabes. Well, these experts that come overseas were not wannabes. And in fact, some of them seem to be connected to Iran.
I guess everyone's a wannabe in these kind of operations until they actually pull something off. So they have to be taken very, very seriously.
Radical Islam and the use of terror against the United States is clearly the foremost danger of our time. That's also why Iran is such an important issue for us, and we have to be willing to be tough about these things. One of the reasons that we have to go forward with our missile defenses in Europe is because of the potential of the Iranians getting a nuclear weapon armed on a missile.
There are worrisome reports now from Syria, Iran, and Hezbollah out of the Middle East saying they're getting ready for war with Israel this summer. Security officials in Jerusalem saying a military buildup on Syria's border with Israel is well underway.
Iran's foreign minister demanding the release of 5 Iranians in Iraq said, quote, the U.S. will regret this.
Jeb, you used their words, put them into English, and what's the message?
The message is that there's a lot of people out there who are threatening the United States in combination or singly, and what we have to do, we have to just wake up and listen.
Extraordinary pictures. Hundreds of newly graduated suicide bombers shown in a frightening new video airing exclusively on ABC. The footage revealing plans to attack the United States and Europe. In fact, on the tape, Brian, they're talking about how we're going to go out and we're going to kill Americans.
Fox News terrorism analyst Waleed Phares joins us right now from Washington with his perspective. He's got a book out that talks about this. Waleed, does this surprise you? First off, that there'll be a terror camp and an actual formal graduation with a target, Germany, the U.S., and the U.K.?
Absolutely not, because this is the strategic standing order of Al-Qaeda and other jihadist groups, and they have even, guess what, a list of target countries, including obviously the U.S. and Britain, first rate, but also other European countries. They've just upgraded France now after the election of Sarkozy to that list. So what you see right now is reality. Now the question is about those other graduates who are going to come or not. That's a different issue.
Waleed, the United States government, Homeland Security, has responded. They say it's just propaganda.
Yeah, well, it's just propaganda is part of the war. Propaganda serves a purpose. That
terrorism is supposed to terrorize you.
On the one hand, but wait a minute. This video, basically, the way it was designed, aim at recruiting other jihadists, meaning this is like an ad for a school. Look, we're going to go bomb the West, so why don't you join us? And it's aimed not just at people in the Arab and Muslim world, but also within the West. Why don't you come and meet us, come to the camp, and you will go and bomb London, New York, or Paris?
Right, and since they have, Mike, since Hamas is getting funneled money by Iran, and Hamas now controls Gaza, how bad a development is that for Israel, and as a result, the United States?
It really is a significant concern for the world community, because now you have an Iranian ally developing a statelet here in the Gaza Strip. And if you look at it from the Israeli perspective, they have Hezbollah in the north, which is Iran's forward deployed army. Another ally of Iran setting up a statelet here. And particularly when you think about it from the world community's aspect, if there were to be strikes on Iran's developing nuclear facilities, and Iran wanted to just cause a bunch of trouble and drag the whole region down into the mess, Iran is really getting in position to do that, Megan.
In the two main engines of terror, the two main supporters, perpetrators, and financiers of terror in our region are Iran and, to a very great extent, Syria as well.
Hezbollah, Iran. Subcontractors, Hamas, Iran. 85% of the troops being killed, Iran.
Right. We know that Iran is the central banker of international terrorism, as Secretary Rice likes to say, supplying Hamas, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. We know they've supplied weapons to the Palestinian Authority. If they had a nuclear weapon, you cannot rule out they would give it to a terrorist group.
Well, Israel clearly has to be ready, because they've got neighbors that on either side or surrounding them in that region who have hostile intentions. And Syria and Iran have been, through Hezbollah and Hamas, funding terrorist organizations, supplying terrorist organizations, responsible for what happened largely last year in Lebanon.
How much does Hamas and Hezbollah and Syria and Iran move together on a united front, do you believe?
They're largely behind all these activities. We know that. That's no secret. Iran and Syria, clearly, these are further efforts to destabilize that area, funding and supplying Hezbollah and Hamas, trying to create terrorist attacks in this region of the world. It's not helpful. And obviously, we have to, as a world community, international community, be prepared to apply the necessary pressures to keep peace and stability in the Middle East.
For example, if we look at all the terror in the region, if it's, the insurgency being funded by Iran, now we learned last week the Taliban is being funded by Iran, Hezbollah $100 million a year from Iran, and also connections to Hamas and other groups here. Do we really have to find and go to the root cause of this, Dennis, and that we must deal with the Iranian problem, and it probably in all likelihood would be military?